What's up everyone, my name is Brad and welcome back to my channel. Today what I want to do is I want to walk through the steps of how to notch your plant. Typically you perform a notching or even topping off of your plant if you want to encourage more branching along the length of the stem. Notching allows for you to preserve the apical growth of your plant, meaning preserve the height of your plant without having to really cut it off. Notching also allows for you to fill in those bare spots of your stem if you are wanting some branching in the lower half or the lower portion of your tree and if it's currently bare. So without further ado, let's start the process of notching your plants. Before we get into notching, let's talk about some of the main components of your tree. The notching technique will work on any type of woody tree. So that could be something like this ficus audrey here. It could also work on Fiddle Leaf Figs. It can work on Ficus elasticus or your rubber trees, any type of woody tree. When we look at the tree here, obviously we see these leaves, but then when we go down, we see that we have a trunk here, followed by your main stem, your leading stem. And then when you look closely, we have nodes. So the nodes are a little bit challenging to see here, but let's point them out. Your node is really going to be any place where you see leaves coming out, but more specifically, it's areas where you see this faint ring that's wrapping around your entire tree. And the distance between your nodes are your internodes. So your internodal length will either get larger or shorter depending on how much light your tree is getting. The tighter your internodal length will mean the bushier or closer together your leaves will be. If you look here, or if you look closely, you'll see that we already have some branching that is appearing right at the nodes. And furthermore, we also see that we have leaves that are appearing at the internodes. And you can see what I'm talking about with this internodal length, how short it is because of the fact that this ficus audrey is outside. So this internodal length is a lot shorter. And then when we go down here, when this ficus audrey was growing inside where it didn't get as much light as outside, the internodal length is larger or longer. And what we want to do is we want to notch at the internode, and the reason why we want to do this is because if we step back and we look at this ficus audrey, we see that we have a lot of growth up here at the top. But then when we look closer to the bottom, we see that we have some bare spots. So I'm going to use this as a perfect specimen to show you the process of really encouraging additional branching. So let's get into how to properly notch these plants or these trees in order to ensure maximum success. Let's go over the basic tools that you'll need in order to properly do the notching process for your particular plant. So you'll need a sharp type tool. So here I just have a pocket knife. You'll need a gallon container. The gallon container is really just going to be used to hold the water that we're going to use when we give our tree a double dose of fertilizer. We have the fertilizer itself. So this fertilizer has an NPK value ratio of 3:1:2. This is the type of fertilizer that you should use for your tropical plants, specifically for your ficuses. And then we have a lighter, and I'll show you what the lighter is going to be used here for a second. So let's step outside and let's do the first process of the notching. So when doing the notching, you want to make sure that whatever tool that you use is as sterile as possible, and you want to make sure that your tool is sharp. So here I'm going to use a pocket knife. The pocket knife is going to give me a nice sharp edge, but I also want to make sure that it's sterile. So the easiest way to sterilize your tool is to use heat. So that's what my lighter is going to be used for. So as I'm turning this lighter on, it's hard to see, but you can see the flame there. I'm going to just heat up my razor. And again, we're doing this on both sides because we want to make sure that we kill off any kind of disease that might be lingering on the knife's edge. All right, so there you go. That's the first step, sterilize your tool. So before I perform my first cuts, I want to again show you where these nodes are and to give you a close-up shot of what the nodes look like. Let's get some focus. All right, if you look right here, I'll put an arrow on the screen as well. that is a node. That ring that you see around the ficus audrey marks a node. If you look further up, you'll see another ring. That is another node. And then these rings exist all along the length of the stem of the tree. Another easy way to figure out or point out the nodes is where you see leaves or branches emerging from. So a leaf used to be right here. And if you look right above that mark, we have a node. And we also see that we have this bud that is semi-dormant, but this is a node. Again, we have a node here as well, right above my thumb. So again, we want to do our cuts right in between these inner nodes because that is what's going to give us the branching. You don't want to cut at the node because if you cut at the node, you're going to basically damage a chance that you'll have in getting a branch to sprout. If you like videos like this and want to see more videos about houseplant tips and tricks, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. It's totally free and would mean a lot. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to notching our plants. Okay, so enough of showing you where the nodes are. I believe you understand and you get it. Let's get into how to actually do the notch process. So I am going to get off camera here or get from behind the camera and choose a node that is going to be right in between these two points here. So I have a node, and I want to do my notching in between this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my disinfected sharp edge and I'm going to cut at an angle into the stem. You want to cut about 1/3 of the way through. And if you look here, let me make sure you can see it on camera. There's white sap that's coming out. So let me maneuver it. And that's what you want to see. You want to see white sap. If you don't see any kind of sap, you're not cutting deep enough. So I'm going to cut along here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut at an angle up to really get a chunk or a semi-chunk, a sliver, if you will, of the tree out. And then that is your notch. So let me give you a close-up of the notch that I cut out. So if you look right here, you can see this notch that I've cut out of the tree. Now what that's going to do is it's going to help encourage these nodes that are fairly dormant to activate. As you can see, they haven't sprouted out any growth, but they're there. If you don't have these sprouts, it will still activate growth. It would just take some time for these little sprouts to appear. But this is what a notch looks like. And that is what you're going for. As you can see, we're about 1/3 of the way through the stem. And you can do this all along the length of where you have barrenness of any kind of tree. I'll do some updates of what has resulted from this notch because I do want you to see what it looks like, and I also want to show you that it does work. Another thing that I want to note is that this white sap that you can see on this edge, and also this white sap that you can see coming out of the tree, this can be irritating to your skin. It can cause redness or itchiness to some people. So just be careful and mindful of that. You may want to wear gloves, or you may want to ensure that you wash your hands thoroughly after performing this procedure if you do find that you get some white sap on your skin. So we're not finished just yet after performing the notching. The second thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we feed the plant with a double dose of fertilizer. That way we can really maximize the chances that we will have multiple branches as opposed to a single branch when performing the notch. So I told you before that this particular fertilizer is an NPK value of 312, and I just want to make sure that you know what that means. So when we look at the back of a fertilizer container, every fertilizer has this. We'll start off with the N value. So your N value of NPK is your nitrogen. The N value was 12%. Now when we look at the phosphate, so that is your P value of NPK, that's 4%. And then when we look at the soluble potassium, that is at 8%. And when looking at these ratios, that gives you a 3-1-2. So if you do 4 divided by 4, that's 1. 4 divided by 8 is 2. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 3-1-2. It doesn't have to be these exact percentages, just as long as the ratios give you 3-1-2. That's how you know you have a 3-1-2 NPK ratio fertilizer. After performing a notch, or you can even do this in the watering directly before the notch, you want to give your plant a double dose of liquid fertilizer. So here I have the fertilizer, and here I have my container, and I know roughly what double of my normal dose is. So I have filled this up with double that. Then I just pour it in here. And then we are simply gonna fill up this container. And a gallon is a good amount of water to use when you're doing this. Just to make sure that your plant has drainage holes and you'll be good to go. So let's go outside and let's water our ficus audrey. Here we have our fertilizer, here we have our ficus audrey, here we have soil. So let's just water this deeply. Deep, deep, deep. And we'll know that it's a nice deep watering because we will see water come out of the bottom. And I'm gonna do this entire gallon. Now very shortly, I will see water come out of the bottom. And that is how you know that you have deeply watered your plant and that the root ball is fully saturated. So over the next couple of weeks, I should start to see some branching around the area where I performed my notching, which is right here. So those are the steps that you should take in order to perform the notching process. Again, the notching process will work if you follow the steps that I just outlined in the video. Make sure that you double up on your fertilizer and also make sure that you're using clean equipment in order to minimize any kind of stress or risk of introducing disease to your plants. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you found it helpful, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll see you on the next one.